Hey, Gator fans. Good to talk to you guys. Okay, I got some stuff I want to get into. All right. I want to talk a little bit about this Jack Pyburn situation. He entered the transfer portal. This happened a couple of days ago. Gator fans have kind of been losing their minds about it. And there's been lots of rumblings about how this happened, right? This is a kid from Jacksonville. He was a 3-star player, grew up a Gator. Coach Napier kind of took a chance on offering him. He came to Florida and, he has really kind of come into his own. He's coming off of an ACL injury that took a lot of rehabbing, but he has become an emotional leader of this team. He is somebody that Coach Napier has been able to count on to do the right thing. He is vocal with his teammates in the locker room, and really towards the end of the season just kind of provided that shot in the arm that this defense needed. And, I think he's maybe one of the last people that we would have expected to enter the transfer portal, right? You find it hard to believe that guys who grew up caring about the orange and blue would jump ship, right? But this is the situation we're in. This is, how the transfer portal and college football work kind of at this moment in time. There were some reports out there that he was asking for $45,000 a month and also looking for some guarantees on playing time, being on the field on third downs, things like that. I don't know at all if those things are true or not. $45,000 a month seems wild to me for a guy who is a contributor, but I wouldn't necessarily call the star of the defensive line. But the asking for promises and playing time actually is crazier to me than the money, because I don't think there are coaches that promise number of reps to guys. I think your play has to determine that. And, that's one of those situations where, okay, so if I promise you're going to play every third down, if they convert it and it's your fault, do you cut me a check back? How does that work? I'm hoping that piece of information that's been leaked out isn't accurate, because I think you're going to be hard pressed to find any coach in college football that's willing to guarantee that to you, particularly when there's guys on your own team who are probably better at the position than you are. But I do think this is kind of the moment that we're in. I think that it's unlikely that Jack Pyburn has a long NFL career. And listen, I would love to be proven wrong on that. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a good, solid player. But more than likely, he's not going to have an NFL career, or if he does, it probably won't be particularly long. So I can understand the desire to get what you can while you can, right? You got to strike while the iron is hot. So I don't necessarily disagree with him trying to get as much as he possibly can. I also think UF has to be smart. They have, whatever number in a pot of money, right? And if he's asking for $45,000 a month, you're talking about close to $600,000 for the year. There's a lot of guys on your team who are going to be looking, to up their payday, right? And so I don't know that we have the capital to spend that on a Jack Pyburn, even though I do think that he's a valuable member of this team. But I was really interested in Coach Napier's comments about the situation today. He was asked about it, and, the easy way out for Coach Napier would have been to say one of two things. Would have either been to say, hey, I'm not allowed to talk about guys in the transfer portal. I don't know that anybody would have fact-checked him on that one way or the other. I don't think people would have thought it was, it's some conspiracy. He must not like him because he wasn't willing to talk about it. I think people would have just accepted that as the answer and moved on. I also think he could have said, I want to talk about the guys that do want to be here, not the guys that don't. And I think that would have been a very valid statement as well. It's not saying you're not allowed to talk about it, but it's shifting the focus back to the current players on your roster that want to be Gators. Coach Napier didn't choose either route, which I think is really interesting. He said that he loved Jack Pyburn like a son, and that he'd done a lot of things and contributed a lot of positivity to the Gator team, and really, sung his praises. And before we go on, I do want to give some love to Meldon Law. We appreciate Meldon Law for all they do to support UF athletics and our channel. As the official injury firm of the Florida Gators, they provide assistance to those that are hurt or injured in car accidents, slip and fall accidents, workplace accidents, and more. If you're in the Gainesville, Ocala, Lake City, or Fort Lauderdale areas and you need a free consultation, make sure you reach out to Meldon Law and let them take care of you. I think that that's a small glimpse into why these guys love to play for him. I think he's a player's coach. I think he relates to these guys. I think that he builds solid relationships outside of football with his players. It would have been easier to give a non-answer, right? And I've criticized Coach Napier for giving non-answers before, but I think in this situation, nobody would have said anything if he just said, I can't talk about the guys in the portal. We thank them for their time, but that's it. But he had a lot of great things to say about him. And that kind of makes me think maybe the conversation went something like, hey, coach, I need XYZ to be able to stay here. And Coach Napier saying, I don't know that we can make those numbers work, but I don't want to keep you from being able to get that number if you can get it elsewhere. And, again, it underscores why these guys care about him and want to play for him and fight for him, even when the rest of us are, pretty much over it, right? And I think maybe it's part of what essentially saved his job going into the 2025 season is how much his players do love and care about him, because they do feel like he's a stand-up guy. He is an honest and caring coach who cares about these players, not just when they're on the field at Florida, but about them in life in general. So I found it, really interesting. And there's been some reports that maybe he's going to test the waters and he might end up back at Florida. I think that Coach Napier's statement makes that move easier than I would have said maybe it would have been yesterday. The last thing out about all of the demands, which again, we don't know if that is true or not, but if they are true, I think it would make it a little bit hard to swallow for Gator Nation if he decided to be like, oh, psych, never mind, I'm back, pay me what you can or whatever. But I think Coach Napier singing his praises and talking about the kind of guy he is in the locker room and talking about how he's like a son to him kind of opens the door for, if he were to test those waters and decide that the grass isn't greener, for him to come back and still be accepted in that locker room and be accepted by this fan base. And, I don't know that that's what's going to happen, but I think the door was left open by some of those statements. And I think that's kind of cool for Coach Napier to do, because he absolutely didn't have to do that. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought that was a really nice thing for him to say about Jack Pyburn. I think it wasn't necessary. I think it was real and from the heart. And I think it's just a little inside glimpse as to why these guys really do care about him and fight for him as players. And as far as Pyburn goes, I'm going to be watching and interested to see where he ends up. He's been a Gator his whole life. And so I'm going to root for him wherever he lands, even though I wish it was going to still be in orange and blue. All right, guys, let me know down in the comments what you think and where you think Jack Pyburn might end up. Do you think he ends up back in orange and blue? Let's talk about it in the comments. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and go Gators.